Alrighty, so in my lesson plan that I created for my teacher, it's going to be the 8 step reading strategies by me, Taylor Jones. Let me see. All right, so the student's age range that Miss Jones's class is between the ages of 11 and 12. Our grade level that she teaches is 6th grade, which is such an exciting grade with that new transition into a brand new school. Hello. All right, and we also have the subject of our English language arts in the specific content area for this lesson. A lot of the time throughout this video, I will refer to this subject as ELA, where you get that English language arts. Alright, so Miss Jones's problem within the classroom is that she faces the problem of comprehension, retention, and application of all material from the students. When she presents the curricula to the students, it is difficult to know if the students are comprehending what they read, retaining information in order to apply their newfound knowledge. To check for understanding, she usually uses the formative or summative assessment and some of the MAP scoring, which goes on throughout the middle school, running records, and results from our ACT Aspire testing. So, what's great about these assessments is that they do test them in their comprehension and retention, but they don't give her instant feedback. She gets those feedback within the end of the year, if not into the next year. How to solve the problem. So what I came up with is with the appropriate technology already provided throughout her classroom, the implementation of software applications will be a breeze. So I presented with her lesson 3 softwares. So Edpuzzle, Blooket, and Google Forms to assist in checking for comprehension, application, and retention of her students throughout a lesson, because these are going to give her an instant feedback. It's going to give her instant feedback for her to be able to reteach problems that are usually misunderstood or are misconceptions. All right, so the first one, Edpuzzle. This program incorporates a supplemental video while also using pop-up questions that follow along with the video. The questions that follow along with the video are used to ensure that the students are understanding what they are watching. So instead of them just watching and not retaining anything, it allows them to understand and follow along with the video. Edpuzzle allows the teacher to create their own video or can use the works of another Edpuzzle. As the video concludes, detailed score reports and analysis comes back for each student. So they go straight back to Miss Jones. So this solves the problem for her because it gives her access to instant feedback, which provides an understanding of how her students are performing and what areas need review for each child. Here is just a little bit of a picture of what an Edpuzzle would look like. So here we have that emblem for them, the Edpuzzle. This is just a video preview. What I picked out for her is understanding a narrative nonfiction. This will get them into the flow. I'm using this as a bell ringer. I'll talk more in depth about that later. So understanding narrative nonfiction. Each of these, I won't circle, but each of these green dots are going to be questions that arise during the video. So you can see that there's going to be a question here that'll pop up, and then a little down the road, another question, so on and so forth. That again is to check their understanding to see if they're following along and applying their knowledge to the video. Our next one that we talked about is the Blooket. If you don't know what a Blooket is, it is just like a spin-off, is what I like to say, of Kahoot. So they create mini quizzes for students to keep them engaged and interactive while taking it. So with Blooket, with Blooket, students can play against their classmates in teams or by themselves within a game. So a fantastic one that happens is that they have one that they love is Gold Quest. So throughout the game, there'll be answers that pop up. If they get it right, they get to collect gold. But as the game goes on, they can start taking gold from other players to make their rankings go up. So it really keeps them engaged and really eager to learn and get the correct answer. But Miss Jones can gain instant feedback either in the classroom or you can assign the Blooket program as homework, which Kahoot, you cannot do that. But for Blooket, you can create that as homework for them. In the classroom, students have a better chance of engagement because, like I said, it makes them eager to get the correct answer and they get to play against their classmates. Sometimes they like to do like boys against girls, or they just have fun with their classmates and try to just beat their friend. But this also allows Miss Jones to see the statistics of students' responses and who is struggling with the game and who is conquering the game within the moment. Okay? Whereas at home, with that homework aspect, students will be playing the game by themselves, but Miss Jones can still see that instant feedback it provides as it grades while the students are playing the game. All right, and this is just again a little bit of an example. We have that Blooket emblem right up here. The one that I selected is reading strategies. Like the title of this PowerPoint, we do have the reading strategies. It's an 8-step reading strategy implementation that Ms. Jones likes to go through while students are doing ACT Aspire prep. So for this booklet, we'd have the reading strategies, and then there's a total of 27 questions. I just couldn't get it all in a picture, but they last for about 15 seconds. They go into a random order. That's what it's going for. And then I can't show the answers, but they give you the questions, and then there's going to be 4 questions that pop down that the students can answer. And like I said, if we're playing in a class, when they get it right, they can get gold. And there's, I believe, 10 other games that you can choose from. So really fun, interactive game that keeps the students engaged. All right, our last one is going to be Google Forms. I know I started implementing this with my kiddos, but the third software program that can be used is Google Forms. The teacher can set up mini quizzes, intermittent quizzes, which means in between the lesson, or they can go as exit tickets. So, based on the curriculum taught to check understanding for the students. So, again, checking that understanding, retention, and application. So, Google Forms can help Miss Jones solve her problem by giving her instant feedback needed from the students. Interspersing quizzes throughout a lesson allows the teacher to see what information is being retained in the moment and what is not. She can also use this as a reteach to pull in students into small groups to go over what is not being comprehended or retained. Okay, so this helps the teacher because it allows her to readjust lessons by covering information that needs extra clarification. So, small groups, just like I said. And here is a Google form that will be used in our lesson. It's a Snowflake Bentley. The students will read a passage and then they're going to answer questions that refer back to that passage. Again, getting them ready for the ACT Aspire. You have first name and then last name block, and then you can kind of see a little bit of a question. But any of these asterisks mean that it is required, and then anything that has any point averages means that this is a quiz, and it gives them a correct answer. That allows Miss Jones to get responses back from here. Usually it's a little tab that is directly above here in the teacher viewpoint. And that will allow her to see what students, since we have the first and last name, take the quiz and how, like, their responses. I'm gonna put R for or RS for responses, and then it's also gonna give them the number of correct answers. So kind of put them into a perspective and give them the statistics. Oops. All right, so curriculum alignment with standards. So I pulled standards for this lesson in the ISTE standards for students. The first one that I selected was the 1.3 knowledge constructor. Students critically curate and verify or create a variety of resources using digital tools to construct knowledge, to produce creative artifacts, and make meaningful learning experiences for themselves and others. So, students create information from digital resources using a variety of tools and methods to create collections of artifacts that demonstrate meaningful connections or conclusions. And students build knowledge by actively exploring real world issues and problems, developing ideas and theories, and pursuing answers and solutions. So, for this one, when they're doing the Google form, they're doing real world issues, the ACT Aspire, and they're developing ideas and theories. And then when we give them that Google form, they're going to pursue those answers and solutions to those real world scenarios in a reading passage. Students create information from digital resources using a variety of tools and methods to create collections of artifacts that demonstrate meaningful connections or conclusions. So that Edpuzzle and the Edpuzzle and the Bookit are going to give them those digital resources, such as the reading strategies and the narrative nonfiction that will help them throughout this lesson. Oops. All right, and then I did do one under the creative communicator. Students communicate clearly and express themselves creatively for a variety of purposes using the platforms, tools, styles, formats, and digital media appropriate to their goals. So then I use the ACD ones that fall under this. So students choose the appropriate platforms and tools for meeting the desired objectives of their creation or communication. Students communicate complex ideas clearly and effectively by creating or using a variety of digital objects such as visualizations, models, or simulations. And then the last one is students publish or present content that customizes the messages and medium for their intended audiences. So for this one, this is going to fall in line with the, if I can write, that would be splendid. Hee hee! Ah, this is great. So it's going to fall under the assessment. So this is where I have some other technologies that I'll introduce when we get there, but they're going to be using the appropriate platforms and tools that they do select to clearly and effectively create their ideas. So we'll go more in depth about that, but it does connect to the assessment aspect. All right, let's get into the set or the lesson plan. So our first thing, the anticipatory set, which is what we know as the bell ringer. So students are going to be exiting a narrative unit and are now entering into a narrative nonfiction unit. So this comes into play with the Ed Puzzle. Just keep that in mind. So to introduce the unit, the teacher will instruct students to brainstorm with their table partners what they know about narrative nonfiction. They already know about narrative, so they really just have to apply how does that incorporate nonfiction. So once students are finished brainstorming, the teacher will share a link in students' classroom that will take them to an Ed Puzzle, that Ed Puzzle that we talked about. This video will guide the students into understanding what narrative nonfiction is and show the differences between narrative, nonfiction expository, and narrative nonfiction. Throughout the video, like we said, the students will be prompted to answer questions that follow along with what they are listening to. This can help the teacher understand what they are understanding and what needs to be gone over in depth. Okay? So students will turn and talk with their table partners about what they learned and compare their new learning to their original thoughts. Students will then share with the class one thing they took away from the video, but they may not repeat any other new learnings. So if one person says, I learned about stories, the other team cannot say that same exact thing. Okay, going into the body. The first half of it, the teacher will distribute a 6th grade narrative nonfiction article. So on grade level, because we got to get ready for the ACT Aspire, which is not going to consider any differentiation, so we have to give those students their reading level. Okay, so then the narrative nonfiction article. The article will be used to demonstrate the importance of rereading and chunking the text to deepen their understanding and comprehension of the text. So remember, solving that problem of their retention, understanding, and their application. So at the beginning of the lesson, the teacher will remind and demonstrate to the students the first 3 steps for success in reading a passage. So step 1, we have redirections to understand the genre. Step 2, preview the text for text features. And step 3, make a prediction based on the title and text features. So again, this teacher is going to go through these steps with them to help them remind and to demonstrate. Okay? The teacher will begin to read the article aloud to the class while keeping step 4 of chunking the text in the back of her mind. So after reading the first 4 paragraphs, the teacher will stop, state to her students how she feels brimful. So what that means is she has so much information that she's overload, right? She's like, whoa, let's break it down. We have too much information. So then she's going to ask what to do when that happens. Responses towards this. She needs to guide her responses to reread. That's the answer she's looking for. So when we have a lot, we need to go back, reread, and figure out what's next. Okay, so the teacher demonstrates that the rereading paragraphs 1 through 4 and identifying the characters and what this is about with a quick jot. So the students will identify the characters and what the paragraphs 1 through 4 are about. This reread and quick jot allows the students to deepen their comprehension. All this again is going to be about comprehension and retention and application because that is the main problem. All right, the last of the body, the teacher will now introduce the 3 questions to keep in the back of your mind when reading a narrative. Okay, so question 1 is, who is in the text? Question 2, what am I learning so far? And question 3, why is each part important and how do they fit together? Okay, so the teacher will read the next 4 paragraphs, stopping and doing a think aloud while answering these 3 questions. The teacher will continue to read aloud, pausing every 4 paragraphs, asking students to turn and talk to answer the 3 questions. So this is kind of going into the I do, or the I do, we do, you do. So the teacher's doing it, demonstrating, talking through it, then they do it together, and then and then eventually the students will do the you do. So we're on the we do. Okay, so step 5, we are going to summarize the passage. Excuse me, that was a horrible line. So at the end of the article, we have reached the end. The teacher will instruct the students to turn and talk with table mates to create a summary of the passage across their fingers. That's just a technique for her to do of the beginning, middle, end, and everything like that. Students will now be presented with the overhead or on the overhead of a typical multiple choice question to show students how active reading can make questions easier. As a class, students will perform step 6. Okay, so as a class, again, we're in the we do. Students will perform step 6. Step 6 is allowing the students to highlight keywords within the question. Step 7, they're going into, the teacher will read all answer choices aloud, and then students will turn and talk with table mates to select an answer and defend it. Okay, so they're going to say this is the answer and this is why, and they all have to, in step 8, come up into choosing the best one. Okay. Our closure, to further solidify the understanding of rereading strategies, students will go to their booklet, their reading strategy booklet that we have. All right, we are now in the you do. So we have the independent practice students will be doing. So students will go to the Google Classroom where they will find a narrative non-fiction passage. The thing here is it's going to be on their reading level, okay? So it's no longer the 6th grade. We're going to their reading level so they can have the opportunity to work on these 8 steps on their own. So each passage will have typical multiple choice questions that you would find. And these questions are going to be on their reading level. Okay, so students will launch and apply their reading strategies to the article and then answer the multiple choice questions via Google form. That's where that third piece of evidence comes back in, or technology, not evidence. After submission, students will meet. Students will meet with their designated teams. Those are already predetermined based on their reading level. So they already know which team they should be on, based on their reading level. They will, as a team, decide and debate. Remember, going back to the defending, which choice is ultimately the best, and then come up in step 8 their final answer. Once the team has their final answer, the teacher will give them immediate feedback. All right, for our assessment, I came back to looping back to the curriculum standard, right? So we're using our Powtoon, Podbean, Posterboard, or Etsley. Those are the 4. I know Posterboard isn't a software, but just to give those kinesthetic learners an opportunity to create what they need to on a board. But we have those 4. But students will be instructed to pick one out of the 3 options. The teacher will give rubrics to the student and state the purpose of the project. The purpose of this project is to do the reading strategies, okay? So the students will put together a presentation through their choice of platform. The presentation will include their understanding of the 8-step process of reading strategies. The Powtoon, right? So the Powtoon will include a video that follows along with their voice and shows the steps and goes in depth about how to complete the steps. how do we go from 1 to 2? How did we get all the way to the 8? So they're going to explain that. The Podbean, which we all love, is a podcast, super popular nowadays. They're going to do an episode on reading strategies. So students will create a reading strategies podcast that highlights and provides examples of each step in the process. Students can then create an infographic, which is that Etzli program or software. They're going to create that to present information of their reading strategies. They're going to include what the steps are and what makes you a successful reader by following these steps. So Miss Jones's class will present to another ELA classroom to show their new knowledge of the reading strategies. The classroom will be split into groups, and her class will split off and present their projects to their assigned group. Students will go through their projects and teach the students their newfound knowledge. After the presentations, the observing students will write 3 glows and 3 glows. So this 3 glows is naming 3 things that they excelled in, and then the 3 grows is what can be improved during this presentation. The class will fix any necessary changes that they got from the grows that are needed to improve their project. And once they are finished, they will turn in their finalized product or project. So our first one, we have Powtoon. Powtoon, if you go to this link that I provided for you down below, that's supposed to be a star, so sorry. Okay, down below, it will take you to Powtoon. So Powtoon is where you can create little kind videos like staff surveys, objectives, whatever you want. This is where the students will come. They'll press on the little plus button, and they'll make their project here. This will go really well with all of the creativity of audio and visual learners. We then have our Podbean selection. Again, I have the URL down here that you'll be able to click on and go to. But Podbean, you'll come over here, you'll sign up, it's always free, and then you're going to create, and it'll walk you through each step on how to create your first episode. And then lastly, we have the Easily. I think I'm saying that right, but the Easily, again, provided the URL for you. You're going to come in. This is what my dashboard looks like. So some of the templates you can choose from. You can make concept maps, kind of like an overview of what you've learned. What information did you gather from your project? So really cool of how you can use these softwares. So all of this software and technology that I included in this lesson will help Ms. Jones's ultimate goal of getting that instant feedback in order to be able to have a reteach moment with her students, pull small groups, whatever she's needed to further develop her learners into outstanding ones. Thank you guys so much for listening.